Thanks for listening to the LCR Media Podcast, where we get to know the pros. I'm your host, LCR Naylor Taliaferro, and on today's episode, another live at the Equip Expo 2022 episode here. It's Thursday. It's the first main day. We just had Influencer Live this morning. We got Energize coming up at 2, and right now I'm joined with Zach Jones. How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. You've been on the Green Industry podcast a couple of times, and I've heard a little bit about your story. And I met you here at Influencer Live after the show, and been trying to get some content and get some good episodes on. So I wanted to sit down with you and get your story on here in case anyone that is listening to my podcast that hasn't heard your episode on the Green Industry podcast, or maybe just found our community, and the content, always trying to keep it fresh and keep it out there. So I think you have a unique story and things to offer. So why don't we start with, what you do now and, how you got into that?
Sure. So I'm an assistant account manager with a design build firm in Maryland. Basically being an assistant account manager, I work under an account manager who has a book of work of about 80 clients that we do maintenance for. That book of maintenance work is about $1.5 million.
Wow.
That is just contract work, and that's before we sell extras, whether it's plantings, patios, anything that they want to do to improve their landscape. And I believe we're nearing the $1 million mark as far as extras goes. So
wow.
Between $2.5 and $3 million for this year for me and the account manager that I work under.
How'd you get into that? Like, was this just like a job you were looking for? Like, how'd you end up with that position?
Yeah. So I guess let's go back to the beginning.
Let's go back.
High school, was, interested in the lawn and landscape industry, and got a job part-time with a guy who was a paramedic and a firefighter, doing it on the side. Did that for about 3 years, just basically mowing lawns. And then transitioned from that. I did a summer with a residential design build firm, small firm, 1 or 2 crews, and learned a lot about hardscapes and a lot more on the installation side of things. And he actually went to University of Maryland, College Park, which is where I went for school. So after that, I went to college, University of Maryland, College Park, got my bachelor's degree in landscape management. And that's a whole topic on its own, because I've heard a lot of guys say that they can't go to school for landscaping. And it's not, if you don't want to go to college, like, that's totally cool. I understand it's not for everybody.
Right.
But there is education out there available to educate you about this industry, so you don't have to figure it out, on
the fly.
Yeah, on the fly, figure it out the hard way. So got my bachelor's degree at University of Maryland, College Park. And then during college, I did 2 internships with Brightview. If you guys don't know Brightview, the largest landscape company in the world, they've got revenues of, I think they're reaching $2.5 billion. And their closest competitor is True Green, which is somewhere in the $1 to $1.5 billion. So their closest competitor has half their revenue. So they're a pretty big fish.
Nice.
Did 2 internships with them, which was pretty cool. Did it at 2 locations. One location was in Annapolis, and then, they sent me another contract trying to get me to come back for a second internship. And I said, well, if you want me to come back, you got to give me a different experience. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. And they said, all right, well, would you like to go to Washington, D.C.? So did an internship in Washington, D.C. That was for my second internship. And they had me be a project manager for a project that was, I think, $175,000. It was 4 bioretention ponds that we were doing plantings in at the Heights School in Potomac, Maryland. And so 2 internships with them, and now I'm graduated and been graduated for about 2.5 years. And I'm with a company in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. I'm a manager for the Annapolis area. And finding the job that I'm at now was thanks to my dad. He was working under, my dad's a plumber, owns a plumbing business, and he was fixing a leak on a sink at one of this company's designers' houses.
Wow.
And they somehow got to talking about me, and he's like, "What?"
As parents do with about their kids.
Yeah. So my dad's like on the floor fixing the leak on this sink,
Talking about Zach.
Yeah, and he's he somehow got on the topic of like, yeah, my son's at University of Maryland, majoring in landscape management, and the designer for this company just reached out his card, and he was like, have him give me a call. So I did a shadow day with them while I was still in college. Just kind of went and visited the company for a day, shadowed a manager, and saw what it was all about, and had a general interview, and then had a specific interview with the maintenance division, and yeah, been there 2.5 years now.
Nice. So, but you actually want to transition into starting your own business at some point, huh?
Yeah. So,
was this always a thing that you had in the back of your mind?
Yeah. Having my own business was always the dream. It's been a dream since I was a little kid. Just like every other guy who's in the lawn and landscape industry, I mowed lawns for $20 or $25 when I was 10 or 12 years old.
The neighborhood kid, yeah.
Yeah. But, I was always the guy who liked watching contractors in the neighborhood work and seeing all the big equipment. And
yeah,
that was always just something that was exciting for me.
Yeah. And you're taking a very interesting path that not a lot of people are talking about anyway. I'm sure a lot of people have taken this path, but when it comes to social media, the podcast, content creation, I haven't interviewed, and I don't hear a lot of those kind of paths where you literally went to, attended schooling, past like high school to specifically, get into this industry and learn as much as you can. Like a lot of people do just go on the fly, whether they were working for companies and they just learned, along the way, or they just started their own business and just kind of figured it out as they went. A lot of trial and error type scenario. You're kind of like doing all of those things. I mean, you haven't started your own business, but you did some when you were younger, obviously, but then, so going for schooling and then also working for companies. So you're kind of incorporating all of that, which I think will be pretty successful for you to, when you do start your own business, because there's hopefully will be a shorter learning curve for you. And in some instances, of course, you still got to do the work and kind of experience some things on your own as your own business owner, of course. But I think it's a different path, an interesting path to be able to go about it that way. And you were saying off air that some folks were giving you a hard time about what are you waiting for? Why haven't you started your business yet? Like, how close to the dock do you need to get this boat? Is it just going to be on the dock or what? Then you won't be able to get it off, and you won't even be able to start. So. At some point, we talk about getting the boat as close to the dock as possible in a lot of podcasts and a lot of content. But at some point, when it's there, you got to step into it. You can't just let it just sit there and kind of rock around, because some big wave might come up and smash it into the dock, and now it's damaged, and you got to fix it before you can get in it. So there's an opposite thing, I think, if we wait too long to get in the boat, to beat that analogy to death. Yeah. So, now you got all kinds of accountability now. Multiple people are saying, hey, by this time next year, I want you to have your own business going. You're like, oh man. So sometimes people, can use that extra accountability and those outside sources to help kind of motivate you to do that. So how did you feel about all that?
It's, I know that a lot of the things revolving around me starting my own business is just stuff that's in my head. I know that there's a lot of analysis paralysis, as we always say. Yeah. So basically, I guess to just kind of give a background of where my life is at personally, I live in Annapolis, Maryland. I'm I rent out a duplex with 2 roommates who I know from college, and we all work at the same company, coincidentally. But I'm only allowed to have 1 vehicle at the apartment. So, and I have a company truck. So the vehicle at my apartment is my company truck. And since it's a duplex, I don't really have a lot of space to store equipment or tools. So, and I don't have a clientele yet. So because, where I grew up is actually about an hour away from where I live now. I moved to Annapolis, Maryland for the job that I'm in now. But since moving there, Annapolis is a very wealthy area. You know, you're from Virginia.
Yeah.
So I've figured out that once I start my own business, I think that the target market is going to be in the Annapolis area or somewhere in Anne Arundel County.
On the outskirts, yeah.
Yeah. Severna Park, you know, Gibson Island, Pasadena. There's a lot of wealth in that area, a lot of big properties. But I need space in order to store stuff. So, and somewhere to keep my personal truck. Right. So I was talking to Keith and Blake Albertson yesterday at the Xmark booth. As Lawn Care Rookie just alluded to, they were one of the ones that challenged me to start my business within the next year to 2 years. So I was talking to them about how, like, right now I'm saving money like crazy.
Good.
Saving more than half my income. And the idea behind that is that I am saving up for a house or saving up for maybe I'll buy a townhouse and then buy some little plot of land somewhere that I can just put a small pole barn up. But that's kind of where my mindset is at right now. Just like saving money so that way I can invest that into real estate and have a home base.
Hey friends, Mr. Producer here, and I've been listening to Naylor emphasize route density on his podcast for over a year now, and I've encouraged him to take all this material and create a masterclass to put all of his knowledge in one place and share it with you. This is going to be a live 3-week course. Nothing's pre-recorded. You'll have access to group live streams and one-on-ones with Naylor. Every session ends with action steps that you can implement right away in your business. Plus, you'll get a copy of the session recordings emailed to you. Hey, if you want to learn how to make $1,000 all the way up to $3,000 a day in lawn maintenance through route density, then you need to click the link in the episode description. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Toro's brand new battery-powered Revolution Series products are changing the lawn care industry. With all-day runtime from the innovative HyperCell battery system, you can expect to power through your entire day, every day. Head to revolution.toro.com to see how Toro is transforming the game with the latest equipment innovations, or click the link tree in the episode description to get you there fast. Hey, Lawntrepreneur, Mr. Producer here, and boy, am I thrilled to announce new air times for the Lone Star Lawn Talk podcast. You'll now be able to enjoy our conversations about business, equipment, and life revolving around the green industry 3 times a week, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Andrew and fans of the show want to hear from you, so leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Shoot us topics that you want to hear and even be a guest on the show. Just reach out through our social media and email, and we'll have those links in the show notes. Andrew and I both thank you for letting the Lone Star Lawn Talk podcast be a part of your listening schedule. Be blessed, friends, and keep that axe sharp.
A lot of this is just analysis paralysis, because if I want to do it, I could, buy equipment and rent out a storage unit up the road.
Right.
But then it's like, I don't want to be driving the company truck around. I want to be driving my personal truck around.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't need people calling the company phone number.
Yeah, that you work for, yeah.
So it's a lot of logistical stuff. So just a lot to figure out. And but that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Well, man, you seem wise beyond your years. Like, how old are you?
25.
25, yeah. So you're very young, and to be thinking this way is really ahead of the game. So whenever you do start your business, hopefully in the next year, right? I think you'll be off to the right track. In my opinion, it sounds like you're doing a lot of things well that a lot of people didn't think about or didn't do or didn't even know was a thing, or and they just had to figure it out as they went along. And they might be super successful now or successful in general, but they probably went through a lot of pitfalls and ups and downs along the way that hopefully you will be able to avoid. And you're like the future of our industry. Like, your generation is where it's at. Like, you guys are all about social media and learning and coming to events like this, and getting that boat as close to the dock, and then just really hit the ground running, when you finally do get to that point. And I think that's amazing, because I really do think that's the future of this industry, is all of the younger guys and girls like yourself that are thinking about all this stuff. And of course there could be, all the, analysis paralysis and overthinking things, of course, it's always a mindset thing. It's always us that gets in our own way,
And I do that a lot. I obviously, just thinking about all this stuff, it's what's holding me back. But, yesterday, Keith and Blake were like, you just got to jump into it and do it, and you'll figure it out as you go.
Yeah. Well, and you're already figured out so much, you know what I mean? And at some point you got to trust in yourself and trust in the system, trust in the notes, trust in that you saved up money and, all these things, and just jump in, and know that you can swim, you know what I mean? Feel confident that you can swim. And, but honestly, you're trying to climb into the boat, and, you feel confident that you know how to run the boat, and if you do fall in, you know how to swim, get back in the boat and keep it going, It's not always going to be perfect, but as long as you're a good swimmer and a good boat operator, and you're close enough to the dock, I mean, I think we've killed this analogy, but I think that that's what a winning recipe right there. And then once you're out there in the open waters, then you just got to learn how to navigate everything and trust in yourself and everything that you've gone through to get you to that moment. And then there's going to be new things that you're like, I didn't prepare for this. And that's where networking and having peers and mentors in the industry, whether it be local and or social media, that really comes into play as well. So you have someone to lean on that maybe experienced this already and can help you and get out of a bind, or maybe foresee issues and be like, hey, this might, I see you going down a different path, or, the way you're going about this, this might happen. So you might want to do this instead and stuff like that. So, I think that's a good recipe for success, and you're already like almost there. So I think in the next year is definitely a good goal for you to do that. So,
well, let's touch on something that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Because that's really, you had a lot of good stuff to say right there.
Well, thank you.
So I think it's important for, and I'm going to sound like Caleb Allman here.
It's all good. We love Caleb.
Yeah. I'm talking to myself here.
Yeah.
So what you just said is something that I need to remind myself often. And I think a lot of guys, whether they're young guys or they're older, but they're transitioning into a new career, they need to be aware of the community that they're a part of. And what do I mean by that? I mean that we attended Influencer Live this morning for guys to tell their story about what they have experienced in business, and people asked questions, and you've got this whole social media community where if you are struggling with something, you can probably get an answer for it. And it's important. I was just talking to a guy this morning. He was struggling to, formulate a message to send to John Pajak about figuring out his numbers. And he said that he wrote the message like 7 or 8 times, but every time he finished writing it, he just told himself that it was like, that's a dumb question. Like, that's dumb. I shouldn't send that. And I was like, I looked at him and said, dude, did you see this room this morning? I said, every one of these people has gone through what you're going through right now. And it's important for everybody to know that, because specifically for entrepreneurs, it's easy for every one of us to, I'm not an entrepreneur yet, but it's easy for entrepreneurs to tell themselves that they're alone nobody's ever experienced this. Like, I'm the only one who's ever experienced this in the entire world. But it's not the case. You've got YouTube, you've got Instagram, you've got Facebook, and you've got networking of just being able to connect with people in person, exchange phone numbers, email, and then whenever you have an issue, you have hundreds, dozens of people who you can ask and figure it out because you're not alone.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line.
That's a great message right there, and great way to land the plane, as Paul likes to say, with the Green Industry Podcast. And I'll just add to that, like you said, it can seem like a lonely place, like you're on an island all by yourself, because typically you're not surrounded by friends or family that are also entrepreneurs or business owners. They're usually just a totally different mindset. They have a corporate job or whatever, and there's nothing wrong with any of those things if they're happy with that. But the point is, usually you're the only entrepreneur in your circle, and that's where social media and everything that you said really comes into play, because if you can plug into that community, then, and especially coming to live events like this, such as the Equip Expo, or many others, throughout the year, it really helps surround you with like-minded folks. And you realize when you start get at a table like this and you start talking to other folks from all over the country, and they're all experiencing the same kind of things. We're all struggling with labor. We're all more than ever before. It's always been an issue, but now it's like crazy. We're all struggling with this, or inflation, or one guy was asking me, he's like, man, how do you get rid of Karens? Like, I've got a bunch of Karens. I spoke about that this morning briefly, and so like we all have very similar things, but when you feel really isolated and like you're on like an island all by yourself. So surrounding yourself by like-minded people, tapping into the community or plugging into the community, whether it be locally or social media or both, that's going to help you feel like you're not alone. I know that's what it was for me. I mean, when I discovered this community 8 years ago in its infancy, with just like B&B Lawn Care and, Spencer Lawn Care and Keith Kalfas, some of the early folks, some of the folks that aren't even, with us anymore, like Keith the Freak and some of the guys that were the OOGs and Lawn Care Millionaire. Yeah. Like, I stumbled upon all those guys, and I was like, man, this is a really cool little community here, and there's the same people commenting on the videos, and I just wanted to tap into that because I had just started my business, and I was like, this, I don't feel like, because sometimes, like you said, you feel like these problems are only happening to you when you're out there by yourself, especially solo. And even if you have employees, it could even feel even worse. Is, if you dive right in, like first year or two, you blow up, you get a lot of accounts, you hire a bunch of employees, and you still don't even really know what you're doing. And the guy's looking to you, and you're like, man, what is going on? And you really feel isolated at that point. Now you have guys looking to you for answers, and you don't even know. So communicating and being a part of these other communities and having peers and mentors really helps you not only feel like you're not alone, but again, to my earlier points, help you get through some of these tough times that maybe you didn't expect or plan for, or just challenges and stuff like that. So absolutely couldn't have said, or couldn't whatever, that is a great statement that you were talking about, joining the community and everything. And I just wanted to add to that. I could talk about that all day, I guess, is what I couldn't talk about. Yeah. I could talk about that all day. So yeah.
And so like, I think, I mean, that's why I'm here, is because I haven't started a business yet, but I want to become connected to all the people that are at Influencer Live. I want to get connected to the people who are here from all over the country, who are just regular business owners. And that, that's something that Brian Fullerton always says. We're all just regular guys. The guys who are at Influencer Live are here for Energize. They're just like us. They're all just business owners. All they do is create content. That's the only difference.
Yeah.
And I'm really just this is my first Equip Expo, and I'm really trying to capitalize on being surrounded by so many great people. And I am, I'm trying to exchange emails, exchange phone numbers, and literally just have people that I can talk to on a regular basis when I'm trying to figure this stuff out. Like, hey, I need advice on this, or, I'm trying to figure this part out. And you touched on being isolated again. I think it's also important that you don't wait for yourself to be in a bind to be talking to guys. And what I mean, that might sound a little confusing, but what I mean by that is, talk to guys regularly. Just like when you're on your way to a job, Brian Fullerton always talks about, like, he'll just give somebody a buzz to just talk to them for 10 or 15 minutes when he's on his way to wherever he's going. Just like, hey, just checking in. How's your day going? Don't wait. Don't, try and figure everything out by yourself, or in that case, like, don't just isolate yourself from the world. Like, communicate with people. Like,
Right.
stay connected with the people who are, giving you advice, and make sure that if they need help, you can help them too. Everybody's just trying to help each other. We're all in this together. So
Yeah. I totally agree. 100%. Well said. So thank you, Zach, for stopping in and being on the LCR Media podcast. I appreciate it, and it's really smart of you to do everything that you're doing. First year here, I want to let you get out here and explore and experience the show on the first full crazy day here Thursday, and hope to see you at the rally tonight at 6 p.m. Copper and Kings, and I'll have a good time there. You'll meet tons of people there. I mean, it's like over 600 people probably again tonight, all in one area, all spread out, but the same, venue, versus spread out here with 20-something thousand people. That's really overwhelming. So it'll still be a lot tonight, but at least you can navigate it a little bit more and have some different conversations and meet some new people. So I think you're on the right track, and you're really smart about the way that you're approaching it and have a plan and all that. So I'm glad I met you finally. Like I said, I've heard you on Paul's podcast a couple times, and glad to see you for your first time here at Equip. Exciting times.
So stoked.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited for the rally tonight. Looking forward to seeing a bunch of people that I haven't gotten a chance to meet yet. It's going to be awesome.
For sure. Well, thank you to the Toro Company for sponsoring the LCR Media podcast. And thank you guys for listening as always. Until the next episode, this is the Lawn Care Rookie signing off.
This has been an LCR Media and Mr. Producer production.